So, we went to the RMFA, and it was funny because, COVID was just starting to be a thing. And we weren't sure whether people were going to really show up or what it was going to be like as far as that was concerned. And, standing in the booth, talking about urethane cement, talking a lot about grout issues with our customers with the 2000 IG and cleaning and just so many things, that people are struggling with right now. One of the bigger questions always is, how long does this take? And that's a problem for epoxy as much as it is for urethane cement. The only product we have that doesn't have that issue is polyaspartic. But the problem with a lot of back of houses is you've got lots of water, and by the time you get it dry enough, you're outside that window. And so though it dries fast, is getting it there. So urethane cement is really the animal. It's the best animal. We had a couple guys walk up that were from Red Robin, corporate guys, and they happened to be actually at the RMFA show with their national installer, their national GC. And he walked up and we were chatting, and Mike Morris had done a great job of doing a floor with a wall system and a cove. I mean, it was a great job. And so they were looking at that, and we started talking, and they said, well, we've got one restaurant that really, really needs to have something done. The grout's failing. They got tiles popping off. It's just falling apart. Right. And I said, well, we're looking for one to go do. If you're interested, we want to go do one. We'll donate the materials. You guys give us a spot. We want you to see how well this is going to perform. The guy goes, well, I don't know if you guys are going to want to go there, but it's in Wilsonville. And I go, Oregon? Yeah. I go, it's like 15 minutes from my house. Yes, we're going to be there. And I knew we had, had Eli in the area that lives really close too. So we had myself and Eli that lives very close to this installation. That same week we were working with a new contractor, doing some training with him. And it was just going to be a perfect synergy. Of course, we get back and COVID hits and everything shuts down, and everybody just kind of goes quiet. Nobody wants to talk about doing anything, especially in the restaurant industry, because nobody's going into them. Yeah. They're all now takeout order. Just such a complete change. Though we kept the door open and we're chatting, just saying, hey, when you're ready and, when you want to. And so basically, we kind of push these guys a little bit from the standpoint of saying, hey, now is a pretty good time. I mean, you've got a takeout business going, but your hours aren't the same. They'd already cut back their hours like a lot of the restaurants have. And we were just saying, you should really take an opportunity right now, at least get the sample down so whether or not you can continue to think this direction, or if you want to go a different direction. And so they were like, makes good sense. So Eli started talking with the national GC, his local rep, and putting together with the manager and with the ops spec installation team, Stan and his crew, and they picked some dates and got it on the calendar. And it was really interesting because they were going to stay in operation, and it was in the cleaning and prep area. And we're talking 14-foot long sinks and all the plumbing hookups, all the drains, all the prep area. It was not the simple unplug the oven and roll it away. It was literally unbolt, lift up, carry, haul off. They literally filled the rest of the kitchen and the back of the bar area with all of the sinks and stuff that came out of these areas. Wow. So came in the first night, ground the floor. Didn't really need to do a lot of repairs. It wasn't as bad. It was as bad as they said from a grout standpoint, but from a tile failure, there weren't a bunch of missing tiles or anything like that. There were a ton of drains. There's a lot of drains, and that definitely was a pain. And there was an ice machine that, of course, ice machines drip. So there were a couple issues that had to deal with. So they got it all ground, and then they came back in that next morning and laid out, or even maybe that evening, doesn't matter, laid out a bunch of ram board. They went ahead and ran they served dinners and lunch and whatever through that day. That evening again, they came in, unbolted all the sinks. I mean, hauled all the stuff back out. Now, fortunately, we're not the op spec guys, the installers didn't have to do this, but the GC had to muster a whole team in there to move all this stuff out and put it back.
You had to bring in the muscle.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I mean, you know, and of course, those of you who've unhooked sinks and stuff, you realize that every time you unhook a sink, there's a ton of water on the floor. Mm-hmm. So right. You know, and it's not the beautiful water. I'm gonna tell you, I don't really want to eat any pickles right now at Red Robin, because that's all you could smell in one area is just pickle juice. Anyway, all that to say, so the second night came in. Eli and I got there. Well, Eli got there about 9. I got there about 10 o'clock, and we cleaned up everything from the degreased, got everything cleaned off the floor from them being on it when it was just ground and open. Yeah. Got it all degreased, squeegeed all the water off, you know, got it to a point where it was moist, but there was no standing water. And we mixed the product in the back of their truck. They had almost a U-Haul looking truck where they had plastic tarp all around it, and hooked the vacuum, you know, right to the buckets and mixed right there in the back of the truck, and then took it in. So we didn't want to take a chance of getting any tile red urethane on the sidewalk outside. Installed it, hand cut in all around all the drains, got everything laid out, and we over broadcast quite a bit. I'd say we probably put on double the sand you needed, because we wanted to have a good buffer between the urethane cement and the ram board for the next day, because they were going to be operating on that all day long on the urethane cement with just the sand on top of it. Right. So that following night, got back in about 10. They were a little late on getting the plumbing and stuff pulled out. I think they were getting tired. So they got all the plumbing stuff pulled out. We cleaned off all the sand, got everything ready to go. These guys, the op spec guys are military guys. And when I say everything was ready to go, I'm seriously, everything was ready to go. Buckets were in lines, material was set exactly where it needed to be. Everything was where it needed to be. So when it was time to go, it was time to go. There was no, hey, have you seen that? Or do you have wasn't that at all. Mm-hmm. So we were able to get the top coat done. Working around a little bit, the GC was trying to work in the kitchen. We're cleaning, and the GC is trying to set a ladder in the middle of the kitchen to work. And finally, Stan keeps bumping him with the vacuum hose, kind of in a nice way, saying, "We're trying to clean here, and you need to get out of the way." But we were able to start. I'm going to say we're done at 1:20, so I'm going to say we started right around 12:45 a.m. and by 1:20 we were completely done with the top coat, cleaned up out of there and outside. And I haven't I know the corporate people walked it yesterday. I haven't heard anything negative, and that always makes me happy when you don't hear anything negative, because usually if there's negative, that's the first phone call everybody makes. So if things go well, this will be 16 restaurants that op spec is going to get. They're only 400 square feet, but these guys made the company did pay them for the installation. We supplied the material, but they got paid for their installation. They asked them to charge what they would charge to do a normal installation, because they didn't want to have to go back to the ownership and say, well, yeah, that was that cheap just because it was a freebie. Mm-hmm. So they made very good money for 3 nights worth of work. I guarantee you they're going to be happy. And there's no way Red Robin's not happy. Not a chance. The job turned out beautiful.
That's awesome. And Troy, could you just walk us through what the urethane cement system that you guys did, what the layers were?
Sure. Yeah. So we did the adjustable thickness system. We laid it down at 3/16 of an inch and then broadcasted the silica sand into the surface of it. So when it was complete, it was 1/4 of an inch. One thing that probably should be noted, it's way easier to, if you've got a drain, it's way easier to grind down and then pour up to the top of the drain. There was a couple of drains where they hadn't done that, where they actually did camper foam around the drain to keep the urethane cement from moving into it. Mm-hmm. We ended up grinding around the top of the drain to get that nice feathered look to it. So that's the only thing that I would say is just make sure if you're working around a lot of those drains, they learned that grind down in the beginning, it makes the finish work so much easier and look a lot nicer. They also, I'm sure, would have given their right something or another for a loop roller that night. We just, there's a lot of hand cutting, and if you've done urethane cement, you know what I mean. You slow down, you got to do a lot of hand work, and then you're coming by with the gauge rake, and they don't usually seam together that well. Eli was a master with the magic trowel, but I think a loop roller would have been really, really helpful. I think every job should have a spike roller, a gauge rake, and a loop roller. And whether you use the loop roller or not, it is a great mechanism for sewing together two different urethane cements that have either two different laying techniques or two different times. Because it's like going to the beach, you run that loop roller over the top of it, and it just brings the urethane moisture up, and you end up with a really, really beautiful seam. So I think that's probably one of the things that they really, really were lacking on the job that I'm pretty sure they'll have next time.
Great. And then could you address the prep really quick, Troy? Because you went directly over quarry tile, correct?
Yeah. So basically, they came in with grinders and good HEPA vacs, and I believe it was only 400 square feet. I wasn't there for the grinding, but they had a good CSP of 5. I mean, a good CSP of 5. The weird thing about quarry tile, yeah, the weird thing about quarry tile, I'm gonna have to change what I'm saying. So they ground it really well. Quarry tile is not like concrete, so you already have a really dense surface. So really, what you're trying to do is you're trying to profile it down so that your seams all work when your urethane cement comes into the next transition doorway or whatever. They didn't take out all the quarry tile, so they took it down enough so that they were able to bring a beautiful seam to it. But they removed the grease and stuff off of it. They got a really, really good profile to it. There still had areas where the grout was missing. So you still had areas where the urethane cement was going down into some of those grout alcoves.
Right.
But even at a CSP of I'm going to say it's probably, when you run your hand over it probably feels like a 2, but you've profiled it as good as it's going to get. You've gotten rid of any texture that was already on the quarry tiles, but don't think that if you grind a quarry tile, you're ever going to see more than a CSP of 2, maybe 2.5. You're never going to get a 5 because its composition does not allow you to get that rough area. So really, you just want to get it so you've got bare open quarry tile, get into the body of it. So that was really important. That's one of those things that I've had people call me and go, I'm grinding and grinding, I just can't get a 5. Yeah. Well, you're not going to. It's like I just, you're grinding through hard powdered sugar. It's never going to be like granular sugar. It's already too powdery.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's great.
Yeah. Once we did that,
that's good to know. Anything else, Troy?
On that particular one, one of the things that the GC was a little confused when they did the cove. There was an integral cove that they did too, and they used they either ran out of sand or just, it didn't really matter because we were going to coat over the top of it with the urethane top coat, which was the finish coat for that. But the contractor was like, you got 2 different colors of cove. This isn't going to work. And Eli's like, don't worry about it. If you don't like it when it's done, that's fine. So obviously when you do the pigmented top coat, it completely looked great. It buries all that. I will say I've had people that tell me, hey, when you go to mix the top coat, the top coat is a half a gallon of A, half a gallon of B, a bag of top coat, and a single packet of pigment. And I know guys will go, I just do a gallon of A, a gallon of B, 2 packets of top coat, and 1 pigment. That's fine if you think if your cove is all the same, but if you have any nuances of color, if there's anything that you've done in that background that is not the same, which is what happened here. They had 2 different colors of sand that they used, so their cove looked different in one section than it did in the other. I just told them, don't take any chances by not putting in both the pigment packs. You want to get 100% coverage. So please make sure that just follow those directions. Don't cheap out. It's $12 for that pigment pack. And it could be, that $12 can cost you going all the way back in there and doing it again. Don't cheap out. You literally are not saving enough money to even care. So yeah, make sure and follow the directions. You'll be happy you did.
Yeah. Terrific. Any last thoughts on the project, Troy?
No, I think these guys, you know, the ram board they were able to reuse every evening. They did a really good job of not of overlapping the ram board a lot. I can honestly say that I don't think anything got through that ram board and urethane cement and sand to get to the urethane cement before we did the top coat. We did zero cleaning on the top coat. So yeah, using good ram board, and I think that extra bit of sand made a big difference for them. So other than that, you know, they were prepared. They had more material than they needed. They had fast fix in case they had to fix some things. They taped everything off and renewed the tape every time they did something again. All their drains were clean. The walls were clean. I mean, literally, it was the kind of job where you didn't have to come back and chip or grind or peel anything. So yeah, being prepared and doing a good job of prep made a big difference for these guys. And they were also, because, you know, you're working, you don't really have the ability, honestly, you shouldn't be mixing inside the building just because of the chances of, you know, dust contamination or something else. Yeah. So these guys had their truck set up to mix in the truck, and I suppose you could do it in a trailer, but they didn't have a bunch of buckets lined up on the sidewalk or anything like that. They were basically self-contained, other than their vacuum sat outside and they ran on a power cord into the truck. But I think that was really smart on their end. It kept them from having to actually make a mixing station on the sidewalk and take any chances of getting urethane cement on a wall or on the asphalt or on the sidewalk. You know, if they had any problems, it was contained within their own truck. So, yeah, it was pretty textbook job.
Good. Great. Well, thank you for that. I think that was really awesome and very informative, Troy, for not only you know, our own guys, but certainly for those that are interested in doing this and doing commercial kitchens in the future, and, you know, seeing the opportunity that urethane cement has versus the quarry tile. Just going directly over that quarry tile is in fact a time saver for these you know, big restaurants and so forth, and national accounts such as Red Robin and these chains. That you know, it's a proven system. It's replicable, and it can be done over a weekend, as you guys just proved. So I think that's really cool and really compelling, and offers a lot of value to them. So that's great.
Well, and I want everybody to keep in mind, you know, when we talk about speed, we're always talking about polyaspartic, but you got to realize in these kitchens, it's imperative to think about moisture. There's just that we were degreasing the floor before we put down the broadcast coat, the adjustable slurry top, or adjustable slurry base coat. So, you know, bear in mind that if you're selling, you know, if you're going to sell an antimicrobial as a top coat and stuff, just bear in mind the time it's going to take to get the floor dry before you put that down. The urethane cements and the urethane cement top coats really make it plausible to not care about moisture.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
Things to think about. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Great story.